When I was 22 years old, I weighed 100 kgs. And the strange thing is, I didn't think there was anything seriously wrong. I wasn't miserable. I wasn't looking in the mirror every morning, hating what I saw. In fact, I still look at myself the same way I did then as I do now. But I wasn't sitting there thinking my life was falling apart. And from the outside, things looked pretty normal. But looking back now, I can see that I was drifting, not failing, not succeeding, just existing. Back in high school, I weighed around 72 kgs. Played basketball, was fairly active, was fairly lean, maybe skinny, I think you would say, just skin and bone. And for years after that, I carried around the identity of being a fit person long after it had stopped being true. I thought I was still athletic. I thought I was still reasonably healthy. And I thought because I used to be fit that somehow it still counted. Then university happened. Late nights happened. Drinking happened. Convenience happened. I lived like 5 minutes from McDonald's. It was just every night, 12 a.m. But before I knew it, I was standing at 100 kgs. And the funny thing is, I still thought I was trying. From the outside looking in, my meals looked healthy on paper. Chicken and rice, tuna and Cruskits, smoothies, just watching what I was eating, but probably wasn't looking at the proportions. But the kind of meals that people tell you to eat when you're trying to lose weight, nothing changed for me. And week after week, month after month, no progress, even year after year. And at the time, I couldn't understand it. Now, I realized I had no understanding of nutrition, calories, and energy balance. I was putting effort in, looking at YouTube videos, trying to do my own thing. But effort without understanding only gets you so far. And at the time, I was living in Wellington. So I was there for 5 years, fortunate to work from home here and there, but had to go into the office as well, trying to figure out what life looked like after university. And then something happened that completely changed me. One day I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if it was barbed wire just wrapped around me. There was no discomfort leading up to it, no little aches or warnings. But it was a pain so intense that everything stopped. I felt like time had stopped. And it was the middle of work and I was just sitting on my seat. And I couldn't breathe properly. I tried to eat, nothing. I tried to drink, nothing. And I remember just going downstairs and curling up into a ball, genuinely believing that was me done. There were people in the house. I could have called out. I could have asked for help. But I didn't. And I just sat there in a ball, frozen, thinking that my time was done. Just waiting, just accepted it. And for the first time in my life, I just genuinely thought that, this is the end. Thinking back to my life so far. And it's strange what happens when you think you're about to die. Your brain starts racing through everything. Have I lived a fulfilling life? Every regret, every unfinished goal, everything you promised people you would do, every opportunity you took, every person you cared about. And I remember thinking how much potential I always believed I had and how little I had actually done with it. So after going to the hospital later that day, I messaged some of my closest friends, not because I knew I was dying, but just because on my head, I genuinely thought there was a chance that I might not be around for much longer. And it sounds dramatic now, but that was my reality. And you know who you are if I messaged you. There's only a few people. For the next 3 weeks, I became obsessed with my heartbeat. Every session, I was just monitoring everything. Every skipped beat, every little thing that I thought was an issue, every strange feeling, change in the way I breathed. Everything. I had an Apple Watch and I was using that to track everything. And I lived waiting for the next attack, just waiting for the next pain, just trying to predict when it would come, waiting for the moment that, it would actually go wrong. The next step I took, done. And I stopped believing in my body and I stopped trusting myself. Most nights I was scared. Most nights I cried, not because I wanted sympathy, but because I was genuinely terrified that I might not wake up. And on the outside, I say I'm okay. But I was terrified that I'd die before I actually done anything meaningful in my life. Looking back, I thought that was the lowest point, not physically, but mentally, for sure. Because fear had completely taken control. Everything revolved around what might happen. And I guess that's where I developed a bit of anxiety, but yeah. Everything revolved around what was wrong with me. Everything revolved around, I guess, survival. That's a key word. And I just became exhausted. But I was sick and tired of being scared and exhausted of monitoring every single heartbeat. I did that for 3 weeks, and I felt like I was living inside my own head. And one day I decided just enough was enough. So if my heart was going to fail, then I wanted to know where the limit actually was. And I don't advise anyone to do this, but I went to the gym and I pushed hard. I think every compound lift, I just lifted more than I knew I was capable of. And looking back, it was risky, really risky. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But for my own sanity, I had to do it because I couldn't just keep living in fear. I needed evidence that my body wasn't as fragile as my mind had convinced me it was. So I pushed my heartbeat. I pushed my heart rate higher and higher. Kept pushing. If I could lift it, I did. And nothing happened. I survived. And at the time I found, I forgot his name. Andrew Huberman, his podcast, and learned breathing techniques and became obsessed with everything there that he had said. But listen, fear didn't disappear overnight. But every workout became evidence that I wasn't broken, that I wasn't dying, evidence that I was capable of more than I thought I was. And without realizing it, that moment became the foundation for everything that came after. Not because I suddenly became fit, I didn't, it took me years, but because I stopped letting fear dictate my life, my decisions. But a little later, when we moved back to Auckland, my partner joined a gym, The Jungle, and this is where my real journey had begun. So at this point, I was still 100 kgs, but she had shown me photos and the transformations of people at the gym, just regular people, people who had completely changed their lives. And I remember looking at those photos and thinking, man, I was a dog and I know I still got it. If they can do it, why can't I, And then she told me the gym was running a promotion. $5, 5 days. Cheaper than a coffee. Like, that's it. It would be dumb not to. And before this, we actually went around to all the F45s and did free trials. But yeah, I was the biggest hater of group fitness as well. I said, oh, whatever, this is dumb. But looking back now, it's funny how life changes. Not through huge moments, but just small decisions, as simple as that. Small things that just compound over time. But because that $5 trial ended, I had to sign up. After the first session, I got absolutely humbled. I was paired with Herman, if he's watching this, and for the first month, it wasn't inspiring. There was no motivational plan, I'm going to change the world type beat. Literally everything hurt. After that first session, I went home and slept for 4 hours. Everything felt awkward. It was new movements. I hated CrossFit. But the gym ran HIIT sessions mixed with strength training, so it introduced a little bit of technique work. But my mornings felt like survival. I'd wake up sore, go to work sore, sit down sore, sit in the toilet sore. Oh my god. Standing up, I was barely feeling my age. And then somehow I dragged myself back there every single morning just to do it all again. 5 a.m. every day. Sorry, I had to get some water. Dry. Yep. Yeah, 5 a.m. every day. And I remember just being so humbled, and that pissed me off because I knew I knew the person who I was, and like I said before, I still had that identity that I was that person, right? So seeing people fitter than me, not knowing their background, anyone who was fitter than me was on the list, I was like, yep, coming for them. And I would die every morning and still not even be close. And to this day, I'm still not even close to some of them. But there's one time where I got partnered with a guy called Zan, and you know something's gonna go wrong when everyone before the class is saying, oh, good luck. So I say, fuck. And a key moment that I'll never forget is we were doing devil presses, racing, so trying to get as many as we could. And I think there was about 10 seconds left, and I had given up. And he just shoved me to the ground, just fully just grabbed my back to the ground. Hurry up, keep going. I didn't cry, but I felt like it. And that was when I just realized that there was levels to it. Yeah, one memory I'll never forget. But yeah, I had to fight all the excuses, right? Good moods, bad moods, it didn't matter. You just have to show up. And I wasn't showing up because I was motivated, but because I finally understood something. And motivation wasn't going to save me, which is why I talk about it so much. But action would, and that is key. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to stay comfortable. I was trying to become someone else. Around 6 months into the journey, I met Thomas, a friend who completely changed the game for me. Up until that point, I thought nutrition had meant eating boring foods forever. Chicken and rice, tuna on Cruskits, smoothies. This is what I did for years and saw no results. You know, the usual what people do. Mince on rice, all of that. But Thomas asked me a simple question. What would you eat every day if you could? I said burgers. Without hesitation, I'm eating burgers every day. That is the dream. But I thought he'd laugh and said, I thought he would cut them out. But he built them into the plan. That single conversation changed my perspective forever, because for the first time, I'd realized that fat loss wasn't about punishment. And it wasn't about suffering. It wasn't about eliminating everything you enjoyed. It was just understanding calories, having the consistency and structure, but most of all taking action. And that's it. For years I'd been trying harder, no result. Now I was finally learning how to be smarter. And that's when things started moving fast. I'm talking rapidly. So when I started with them, I was 90 kgs and the weight just started coming off. My face changed, and that was huge. I'm gonna put up a photo if you can see it, but my clothes would fit differently. That was amazing. The marks around my waist on my tight pants would disappear. How good. Double chins. I got a little one coming back, but it's gonna go. People started noticing, and honestly, the biggest surprise wasn't how difficult it was. It was how quickly things change once I committed. But there's something people don't talk about enough. Losing weight doesn't solve everything, and I thought it would. I still love bad food. Smashed back a pizza last night, and trust me, I fight the urges. We have a chocolate bowl, and I'll confess I had about 10 of them the other day as well. But I still have struggles, and it definitely didn't magically fix my mental health. What it did give me was something much more valuable. Proof that I could change. Proof that I could suffer through difficult things. And when you do it once, you've got that in your arsenal. You know you can do that again. But it was proof that I could keep promises to myself as well. And it's hard to ignore that everywhere else in your life. The confidence wasn't really about looking better. Although I'll admit wearing clothes that actually fit properly was nice. The confidence came from trusting myself, my actions, and trusting my ability to actually follow through. Look, the effort I'd learned to put into training started showing up everywhere else. My relationships became 10 times stronger. I became more present, more reliable. That is huge. And just more engaged with other people, with their life, and showing genuine interest. And I felt like I was finally showing up for the people around me the way I always wanted to. Then it showed up for my career, you know, in my ambitions, and then eventually starting my own business. Because that same principle helped me lose weight, it worked everywhere, consistency, patience, discipline. But most importantly, you just have to take action when you know you're not ready. And the person I am today isn't the same person that was sitting on the floor in Wellington, convinced he was about to die. Back then, I was scared to live. And today, I'm chasing challenges most people will avoid, I've ran a marathon after like 17 weeks of training. I hated running, terrible. Competed in High Rocks Pros, got absolutely humbled. Did a CrossFit comp, deadlifted 210, squatted 150, benched 130. I don't have those numbers right now, but those are the PBs. And the funny thing is, I didn't even weigh 76 kgs. I can't even remember if I had mentioned that I got down to 76 kgs, so I lost 24. But today I weigh around 90. I'm finishing my bulk. So soon that'll come down again. The goal was never to stay skinny, it was to get rid of the weight, understand and control it, which I felt like I've done correctly this time. But I'm becoming someone who could deliberately move their life in the direction they wanted to. Now my goals look different. I want to maintain strength, get stupid fast, maybe even chase like a sub 1100 meters. I used to be able to do that, not anymore. And not because I need to, but I'm just curious if I'm still capable of what I once was able to do. Curious if I can still move the needle forward an inch more day by day. And looking back at the photos of myself at 100 kgs, I do feel embarrassed, but there is that version of my life that I'm grateful for, because when fear completely took over his life, he made a decision. Actually, he made a few. The decision to stop living like a victim, fighting back the tears, to test his limits and walk through a gym door. That was the best decision to sign up for a $5 trial. The decision to come back the next day, and the next, and the next. But look, all these things weren't the achievement. But all these things that I had done, lost the weight, ran a marathon. Change is actually possible. Because when you truly believe you can change yourself, you start believing you can change everything else too. And when I look back at everything I've built since then, my fitness, my business, my relationships, it all traces back to one simple moment. A scared kid who was terrified of what might happen, deciding that he was going to figure out what he was really capable of. My aim for this channel is to help people and document my life and journey. But I thought maybe you should have some context into who I actually am. This is just a small piece of my story, and you'll find out more. I'm not going to say like and subscribe. I'm not going to say like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed.